Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. There's no need for any alternates tonight. All the board members are here. So, would you like to read the minutes? And we'll vote on those. Has everybody read them? Oh, still reading, okay.
I move acceptance of the minutes. Now the special session.
I'll second.
There's a motion made to accept the minutes for the special meeting.
Second it.
There's a second. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
You want the second one?
Mhm.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of our meeting from last week. I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the minutes for our meeting afterwards. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Aye.
Any abstentions, or, nope,
I abstain, I didn't attend.
did you work there? Okay. With one abstention.
Two abstain, for the previous one too.
Right, previous one as well. Other than that, they passed. Okay. Now, at this time, you're lucky, it's gonna be early. You'd like to present the library budget?
Sure, yes, thank you. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Chris Frank, I'm the library director of the library, and I was at the budget meeting on last Wednesday. But the budget, it was one line at the end of the budget, so I didn't know if you had any further questions about that. But I have a copy of my proposed budget, does it only hang on to everyone? All right.
Can I have one, please?
Sure.
Do you have enough for all of us?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I guess you do. Did you get one, Erin?
I did.
Okay. Thank you.
The budget was, the library board and I met in January and created this budget, and it represents a 0.73% increase over the previous year. And the most of the increase is for contract negotiated increases for the staff. So I'll go through the line. Salaries part-time, that's our part-time employees. That went down from 105,274 to 104,167. And the reason it went down is because somebody new was hired, and they get hired at the lowest step. So that's why there's a decrease in that line.
Okay.
The salaries full-time was increased 5,575, 2.61%. The FICA went up based on the salary increases. Group health and life, I was advised to leave that the same as last year by the treasurer's office, and so that's what I did. Retirement went down by $1,398, and that was just the actuaries, and it was a actuarial adjustment. Longevity went up by 414, and those are all the lines I really don't have much control over. Postage, I left that at 500. Every year, I make one purchase of stamps. I lock them up in my desk, and I usually do it in April. I'm going to postpone it this year because of the budget freeze. So that's why I'm leaving it in, because I'm going to have to buy stamps after July 1, after the freeze is over, hopefully. Maintenance is $10,000. That covers printing costs, copier costs, trash removal, alarm inspection, fire extinguisher inspection, some custodial supplies. It includes a supplemental cleaning service for the library. This has been in the budget for about 5 years. And if anyone has any questions about that, I can answer that. Electricity, we were advised to keep it the same, although this year we have a significant savings in electricity, but there's no guarantee that savings will. There's been other years where we've had to put money into electricity. So I don't know why it's so low this year. I'll try to get it for you.
Well, good.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same, but I don't think you change it no matter what, because that same money keeps going into
Yeah,
pay
it
the
goes
bill.
Right,
Right.
right.
It's
It
an offset.
comes back at the end, yeah.
Okay, so I'll move on
That's
to
fine,
that.
yeah.
Well, I got a question, do you have any fuel oil expenses anymore?
That's paid for by the town
Okay.
in one bulk. They pay like a bulk bill
Okay.
for all the buildings. Water, I adjusted that downwards because we always had a surplus in that line, so I just took the actual bills from last year, and they only equaled 428, so I adjusted it down. Telephone, every year we have to put money into the telephone because the fees go up, and every year, and it seems like we're always short. So this year I added in the projected, I took the percentage of what the fees went up this year, tacked it on to next year, so that's why the telephone is up $173. Office and library supplies, I had cut that back significantly in the past couple of years, and we're more than 50% spent on that, even with spending quite frugally, because mainly because library book supplies are very expensive, and we try to go the cheapest way we possibly can. Mileage, professional dues and travel, that has been significantly reduced because the town has electric vehicles now, so any business travel that we do, we are supposed to use one of the electric vehicles. But we do have some dues. We belong to an organization called CLC, which provides us with significant discounts on books and other materials. Our book discount is 46%. And that's like $700 a year. Capital equipment, I left the same. That would be a shelving unit, an office chair, something of that nature. And we have used that in the past, but just left it in there. And programs, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over books. Books I left the same as last year, and programs I left the same as last year at $1,800. And the grand total of the budget is $542,109, and that's a $3,926 increase over last year for a total of 0.73%.
And most of that is in salaries,
it is,
the lion's share. May I make a suggestion?
yes.
When you have a line item that's got a lot of different things in it, can you put a sub underneath it and give us
Sure.
an idea of what's in that line item?
Sure.
It helps tremendously.
Sure, I have a budget explanation
Is it-
sheet, if you would like it. Hang on.
There is one already. so-
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
It's got one, right?
Right.
we have one that,
I can test this out.
yeah.
This explains every line and some of the things in it, but I can certainly do that, I can certainly tack on, like.
It just helps instead of us trying to write it all down and try to remember
Right,
exactly.
well,
what
that's,
was
that's
in
why
it.
we
Sure.
produced this piece of paper to tell you what's in each thing. Because I have to do that too.
I've got, is it okay to ask three questions now, or should I wait?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask a couple?
Oh, by all
questions?
means.
Okay. So the salary increases, the 2.61, that's just contractual increases right there already?
Yes, their contract is
Okay.
in the last year, they're gonna it ends on June 30th of this year.
Okay. And the same thing is true with the longevity?
The longevity is in the contract, so it's based on 5 years or more, they get
Right, and your people have been there a long time, obviously.
some of them have, most of them have, yes.
Okay, and it's only $400 anyway. And I just wondered, as far as the utilities are concerned, you were one of the last people up there to get hooked up effectively. I remember you came to us one time and said that, you had no money for the oil, but the system wasn't working well. It was a year before last. But now it is, the solar and the...
Yeah, actually, they had the company that did the geothermal system had to come back and put different sized pumps in. The pumps that they had in were too small, it wasn't allowing enough water to the system to heat and cool effectively, and since they've done that, there hasn't been any issues with the building.
It's
at all.
worked good since then?
Yes, it
That's
has.
great. Okay. Do you use any fuel oil at all?
I don't know, I'd have to refer that to Bruce, but we have not been, as far as I know, we do not run the boiler very much. The boiler, the oil is strictly as a backup
Yeah, that's
in
true.
case there's a failure of the geothermal system.
And I'd just like to add one thing. The library performs a lot of really important services to a lot of people who, don't use some of the other services, the mainline services that the majority use. I've seen people looking for jobs up there, going on the computer and typing out their letters and so forth. And what you do for the kids is tremendous. My grandsons go up there. The programs are good. And I think if you look at the price of DVDs today, it's ridiculous. You can pay $25 or $30 for one movie, and if you try to sell it back to somebody, you get $1 or $2. So obviously, it's better for people to use the services of the library there, and a lot of people get fun out of that. I see a lot of the older people that my wife knows who regularly take those things out. So anyway, I just think it's, you also have good speakers, you also have special programs. I just think it's very good for the community as a whole.
Well, thank you.
No, I agree. We've heard from a lot of parents that say the same thing. That the library is invaluable, and it's a beautiful, beautiful facility, and it's kept very nicely.
Thank you. I have to give the credit to that to Bruce Davis. He keeps our building going very well, and our custodian, Dave, and the cleaning service. Dave doesn't have a lot of time to, but all those things combined, I think it keeps going, thankfully.
Does anybody have any questions? Just don't.
Yeah, can you tell me your group health and life, it seems, can you tell me what that's about? Because that's like a big number, $83,000
Sure.
compared to salaries of
Sure.
$200,000.
Sure.
It just doesn't.
Well, there's the full-time employees are entitled to get health insurance.
No question about it.
And that's a big ticket item. I think it's like, it can be like upwards of $20,000 for one person. I don't have it's a significant amount of money per employee.
And it does seem like a lot, it seems very expensive to me in my own, from the business side of the world, it seems like you're getting whacked. I don't know how many full-time employees you have,
Yeah.
but
I don't know how many people we have. We're part of a larger group. The whole town uses the same insurance. We use United Healthcare. They switched from Anthem, and at that time I said, is it a savings for the town to go from Anthem to United Healthcare? And they said, think the answer I got back was not really. I mean, it's the
And
same.
the only reason I say is because you're, as I looked at the other budgets, I didn't see anything else that was broken down that said health insurance, some of the other budgets, so I just.
Well, that was put into our budget. I've been here since 2011, and that was put in like that year when Michael Kroll was the first selectman. I don't think the insurance was in the library budget at the time, but the thinking was, you want to have all the expenses of the library in the library budget. So that includes the health insurance, unfortunately.
And I understand it, and that just seems like such a large number compared to this full-time salaries that you have. It's well over a third, and it looks like it's 40% almost, it's
It
crazy.
is, it's 40%.
That's 40%, to me, that seems excessive. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't know because
Yeah.
you don't know either.
Do any of the part-timers get health benefits?
One person does, it's, you're allowed to get single coverage if you work 26 hours. And one person has single coverage and she works 26 hours.
I think what happened, the town is in the state system, right? They have the same insurance that we have.
Yeah, we were self-insured and then they moved to.
Right,
the
you're
state.
When you went
self-insured.
from Anthem to United Healthcare, that's what we did too. And they still can get better terms by coming into the state program than they could if they went in individually. But I know when we used to bargain for people's salaries, 40% was the fringe benefit cost that we always included in the contracts. It is expensive, no question about it. But it's probably the best deal going, considering that, you're in with a huge pool. And that's probably about the best you're gonna do.
Well, in Stafford, they're self-insured.
No,
We have
we
have
were
our
self-insured, but they moved out of the self-insurance, correct, Aaron?
Yeah, they moved out.
They moved out and went to the state plan.
There's still, yes, but you're right, but the Board of Education is
The
still
Board of
self-insured,
Education.
self-insured, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought, yeah, that's right.
So the savings we had on one side, we lost
Yeah,
on the
lost
Board of
that.
Ed side because
Right.
we bailed ship.
But the Board of Ed stayed with it,
Correct.
yeah. So, did that answer your
Yeah, no, it
question?
did, it's,
But I
it
know
should
when
be,
you-
it should be
I
a
agree
line,
with
it
you're
should be
saying.
a line item as, if it's the town, then there's gotta be some.
I think it's in the other budgets. I think
It
it's
is
the
in
budget.
I just looked at the Board of Ed, it's in there too, it's
That's
as
not-
fringe benefits.
It's just
but
less ignorant over there.
I just think you
You
should be able to
see 30%.
negotiate prices.
But I agree with you, sometimes the different budgets are brought out in a different way, and that was something that kind of stood out.
It's,
Plus, we're looking at a budget as 12 items, which the other one.
Right.
I got one more question.
Sure.
How are you doing this year on your budget? You over, under, or?
We are significantly under. I have a sheet right here. At the request of the first selectman, back in, at that time it was Selectman Frasinelli. There was a significant holdback from the state of Connecticut for educational reimbursement to towns. It was $1.something million. You probably heard of it. And so we've been not spending anything. For example, like our book budget, we've only spent a third of it. We should have spent 2/3 of it, at this point. We have not spent any money in our programs budget. We've just been doing it, we haven't had any programs, or a lot less. We haven't spent anything out of continuing education. We haven't, so everything that's discretionary, I've been not spending. That's why there's money left in. We're only at 64% of the budget right now, which we should be over 75.
Mhm.
This time of year.
And not having programs is,
Well,
People notice, people notice what
I'm
doesn't,
sure
what
they
doesn't
do.
happen, and they notice the materials that don't get bought, and I understand why everything needs to be the way it is, but you don't ever catch up. The stuff you don't buy this year, you don't go back next year and buy, it's pretty much gone forever unless somebody donates it, so it's, from a collection development, sorry, I didn't mean to walk on you, but
it's all right.
I'm in the same boat, but from the collection development point of view, it's frustrating to try to keep up
and
with.
unfortunately, one of the most important reasons is we still don't know.
I know.
So that's why everything is in a freeze, because we don't know
Yeah.
what we're gonna have to do.
Okay, I understand completely. Yeah.
But the things that
It's
we
frustrating.
freeze are the things that the people see the most, the things that touch the public
I
the
can
most.
imagine. I don't have any
I know,
grandchildren
I know.
that age group anymore, but I use the library myself, so yes, I do know.
Yeah, so you can see what's not there, you know, that author's not there or something, so.
But you're doing a good job.
We're
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? No? Thank you very much for coming in this evening.
Sure.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you want.
Left my 9-year-old at home.
I think I won't stay if you don't mind.
When you get into this, it's like
Hopefully next year will be a better year.
Yeah,
Thank you.
396,000,
thanks for the opportunity.
just in the town site.
Alrighty, so now it's the rest of the budget that we have to kind of talk about and discuss. Is there anything that happened at the, or everything that happened at the first public meeting?
We didn't get hardly any feedback at that meeting.
We didn't get hardly anything, but I honestly think it's because, in my honest opinion, I think the school did such an outstanding job that there weren't a lot of questions to be asked. And I do think Mrs. Smith did an excellent job of presenting hers as well. So, I know.
I was surprised at the lack of feedback to the size of the crowd. That hasn't been the experience in the past. The more people usually, the more.
Well, a lot of the crowd was, I know that the Board of Education, a lot of their teachers and administrators are there. I know we had almost all of our department heads there, and that could have made up more of the crowd. But they all knew what was going on, so there weren't as many questions.
I thought just these 4 pages that Lisa sent is probably one of the best, easiest, shortest version of looking at where we're at.
Where we're at,
Yeah.
yes.
And it is good.
I mean, it was really easy to go right to it and see exactly where
Do
we're
you
at.
have another copy of them for Neil? That you can see out?
This one here?
I got it.
Yeah, I got a couple of them.
You have them?
Yeah.
Oh, great,
This one here?
okay.
That's one.
Thank you, though.
That's the whole package.
Okay, that's the whole package.
So what does anybody think, or what everybody think?
That's a big jump.
Here,
We're in deep trouble. That's a big jump.
Huge jump.
And I think that's why it was quiet at the meeting, because nobody really realized
Yeah,
a
once,
0.98%
Once
increase
they
here,
have- yeah.
0.7%. They're thinking that it's gonna be a 1%
I agree with you,
increase.
Tony,
And that's what it is, it's probably
and once
closer-
Mary gets her budget squared away, which she's doing now, and she presents it at the second one, and we present what we might have to do for the mill rate, I think you're gonna see the crowd go crazy then.
Yeah,
that's what you're gonna see. You know, when you look at, one thing
yeah,
I,
7%.
it never occurred to me when we went through our budget before, if we took out the selectmen's $100,000 for the lights, her budget's actually less than it was last year. Her budget only went up $69,000, correct?
Right.
And that includes the
But it's
100,000
going to
for
be
the
going
lights.
up more, because there were some things that, as we were going over, that she did forget, so it will be a little bit more.
I think she said it might even go the other way. No?
Last I spoke, it was going to be more. But then again, I don't know for sure, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Either way, the point I'm making is the Board of Selectmen doesn't seem to be asking for anything new except for the lights,
Yeah,
You know,
which has to be done at some point.
and you're right, you're not, they're being very frugal.
I don't know if anybody noticed on the revenues page,
That's the real problem right there.
well, what the real problem is the revised current budget. I don't know if you looked, there's a bottom line on that.
I sent it.
And so, you know, based upon what she gave us here, it's showing that we're short just over $1 million for this year.
Correct.
Right,
Which, how much of that's gonna get made up by return, whether it be from the, you know, library, the Board of Selectmen, the education, because we're gonna have to make that up.
yes, we are.
No, I talked to her a little bit and everything else. I mean, she had said with the $1 million that were short as far as in this year, the 17-18, they were
You're talking to
projecting,
Lisa?
yes. They were projecting 500 to come back in from the Board of Ed,
Yeah,
okay, and then projecting maybe
Mary threw a
2
number
or
out
3,
too, right? Yeah.
200,000 coming back in from the town. Okay, so that's still 700,000, which leaves a variance of, what, $300,000,
I mean, if we're down to
$322,000.
$200,000 or $300,000, that would be a huge, my opinion, a win
Right,
compared to where we were, where we've been all year.
right. Well,
She
but,
showed me 450,000 here, right?
Now, with the revenue side, Dave, we're looking at.
Oh, you're talking about the revenue side?
Yeah, not like that.
I'm looking at the cash balance.
That's all state money,
Yeah,
all right.
in the revenue side, what she did, if you look at the revised,
Are you looking at the revenue?
it shows
Okay.
what she's figuring we're short this year.
right,
That includes the state revenues.
right,
That should include everything, right?
yeah, right.
Should.
Yeah, I guess that's my question too. Does that include what she assumes for all the holdbacks? In other words, that we're not gonna get anything more than what we're,
I asked that question, and it is an assumption, she doesn't know what's exactly gonna happen there. What
could
she
we
just gave
actually get
exact.
less? Could we actually get less this year?
Yes, you could.
So right now, this number isn't even like the worst
Although,
case.
although I say that, but then again, on the news, at noon time, and I think again at 4 o'clock, they were saying that the road grants have been sent out to different towns, so we might be getting at least a grant for the roads. A grant in for the roads, that much I had heard.
That's the pothole, that's the pothole money.
Right,
Copy that sometime.
so we could be getting that
Yeah,
in.
that's the money we transferred into their budget last year to reduce it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's in your email.
But even still, with the, you know, we're 300,000 less this year, okay, from the budget, and we're projected to be getting in another 1.7, 1.8. So that's a $2.1 million variance that we have to make up. So the
Say again?
$2.1 million variance, pardon?
say that again?
Okay, if we're short $300,000 this year,
Okay.
okay?
Plus, okay, got
Plus
it.
the
I'm with you
1.7,
now.
almost 1.8,
Yeah.
okay, that's 2.1, that's 3 mils. 750,
Well,
approximately 750.
she's saying
is a mil.
herself
Yeah.
that it's gonna be 2.29 right now with everything the way it is.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I think that, and that's only next year's anticipated budget. That has nothing to do with the $1 million we're short
Nothing,
over here.
nothing.
Which, like I said, hopefully a lot of the savings makes it up, and we're left with a small number.
Well, I think also this is an election year, and you're not likely to see, I think the money that is owed us will come back between now and the end of this fiscal year. They'll make up phony figures, they'll pretend they found money, whatever. Nobody's gonna slap the towns again with elections coming up, I don't think. And the Democrats do have a plan, you know, it's probably not realistic, but they do have a plan that includes, you know, planning tolls for the future and one-time savings in a number of events and so I would think, I think the majority of that money will come to us.
That'd be great.
You know, we can't bet on it.
I've been
I mean, right
saying
now
that right along, but I'm not so sure anymore.
It's getting real close to November, so.
So, and I didn't quite understand your answer to that. The $1 million right now, that's kind of based on a worst-case scenario?
Yes.
So we probably won't get shorted anymore.
No.
We'll be lucky if we get more, but if we figure that number with everything,
And that's about what Lisa's doing, and she keeps saying that we'll be okay,
yeah,
we'll be okay.
good. Like so, up than where we were.
But are we gonna be okay with raising it 2 mils, we're gonna be okay with leaving it alone, or I don't know exactly what the okay is. Do you, Neil,
Well,
have any clue? No?
No, I was at the treasurer's meeting for the state last year, last Wednesday, and there was a lot of slippery slope, and let's not go there until, and I think that night they bailed Hartford out, so I don't think they told us, it was kind of a general, we're here with the treasurers, but we don't know what to tell you still, with Denise Napier last week, so I don't have anything different than what you have in front of you here.
so you got a 6% increase in taxes. What do you
I'm
guys?
sorry?
It's a 6% tax increase, what do you guys feel is acceptable?
Okay. Is that,
I don't know anyone that's getting 6% raises.
I think what you have to, and you, because you're not used to being here in terms of what goes on or whatever.
Right.
I mean, right now, we have the budget presented, so we have to make a decision, when I say we, you guys, have to make a decision what to do. Do you go back and tell them to cut the budget they have?
well, okay, this is true, and this is the first meeting after the first public hearing. And again, Mary Nitta is, was gonna be here this evening, but we were gonna hear the library and everything. She's going through the budget now to actually give you our final. So before we can make any decisions, we've gotta see what that final is. As far as the Board of Education, this is their final. The one they gave us is the one.
They said they would have to lay off staff if they were cut anymore.
Right, we can't cut the Board of Education anymore, or its teachers are gonna go. And that's the bottom line.
You know,
And I certainly don't wanna see that happen.
the other thing that bothers me is we're sort of getting into, I don't know what the answer is, I don't have any, but we're getting into a bigger and bigger hole. Bruce Davis said again, he's putting off maintenance on buildings that the town owns. It has to be done. It should be done. So where's the savings there? It's like buying a new car, you don't change the oil. Remember the old ad, you pay me now, pay me later kind of a thing. Every year that's been done. And the same thing with the highway people said about what would happen with their reductions, that they would have to take them out of paving and road repairs, and, it's falling apart. I mean, every street has a ridiculous situation, so I don't know how much more you can cut. I don't know, I mean, if this is gonna continue at the state level, we're gonna face this every year, and there's gonna have to be increases at the local level. You can't make money, print it. So I don't know, I mean, as far as the 6%, I mean, that's a lot, you're right.
It's actually 6.7.
But, but this is the thing, and it has nothing to do with us, but I just wanna say this, because I'm working with a group of economists that are, I think, really helping us to understand what happened in Connecticut. 1989 was the first year that the receipts from between 35 and 40 different taxes that Connecticut has, every kind of thing, you get permits and, licensing and all the rest of it. That was the first year that it did not increase 10% every year. Okay, in the 1990s, it dropped to 6%. Year 2000, it dropped from 4%, and by 2010 to 2017, the revenues actually went backwards, and they were flat in 2016, and they actually reversed. They were below the previous year in 2017. And it is exactly what's happening to us now. It was the revenues that came into the state, not the spending or anything else. It was the revenues that kept dropping. They still haven't got an answer for what to do, and we don't have one either.
There's net migration out of the state, that's what creates it.
No, you know what creates it? Well, there's
That's a
some,
part of it, because you're not growing.
yeah,
So
part of it, but,
less housing, less, less fees,
Yeah, but-
less everything.
but what's really, these guys, we're not finished to write the paper yet, but they're saying that the biggest problem in Connecticut is that hedge funds and large investment houses that the banks and the insurance companies, help create, are siphoning money out of the economy, and it never goes back into the hands of people who spend it. What happens to it is it's sent overseas, it's banked, it's invested somewhere else. Whereas if you give the money to middle-class people and below, they don't have any choice. They have to spend 80, 99, 98% of their income every year. These guys that are hoarding this money, they're taking the money right out of the economy. And that's what they're trying to run now with computer programs to see whether that's actually what happened. And the net loss, you're right, but it was not huge. It was like a couple thousand. It was, they'll say 34,000 people moved out of Connecticut in 2017. You'll say, geez, that's terrible. Then you find out 28,500 moved back in. And some of these people have lower incomes, but that's because they're younger. Their potential to earn will be still very strong. But we're facing the same thing, so what do? I mean, that's what it really comes down to.
It comes down to it, it makes a lot of sense, but the bottom line is,
Can't tax
if
her
we're gonna
around.
get less money, we either have to tax more and raise more money, or cut spending. Those are only two choices, and the taxpayers of the town have to decide that. A 2.29 mil increase is gonna be a real tough one to get through. And, you made a really good point about Bruce Davis and the buildings and everything. My opinion is just that because every year, we go back and we cut that budget. We cut the selectmen's budget proportionate to the education budget. So if we're gonna make cuts, that's usually where we take it out of.
I know, yeah, you're right.
You're right, you're right.
And that's what hurts that.
All right, let's face the reality here. I mean, part of what the problem is, and I know it's gonna be taken the wrong way, but every single year, education doesn't get cut.
Education
Okay?
doesn't do
Does
what?
not get cut, okay? And
No, they don't.
they don't,
Well,
okay, they don't, okay?
no, but they've been asking for less, too.
They have not asked for it, they went 1 year flat, they have never asked for less than they have gotten the previous year. Okay?
Last year they did.
Last year, they went flat last year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not asking for less, they went flat. Okay, so what I'm saying here is there's a lot, and part of it goes back to the state, because the state has a lot of mandates that they're pushing upon the local communities that are not being funded. And
Correct.
so now they're expecting us to have this unfound wealth somewhere to go ahead and fund all these mandates
That's been
that are
happening since the 80s,
that are
you're right.
crippling
You're right.
society. And that is part of where our problem lies. I mean, you know, the mandate to turn around and you can't fund it less than the previous year, that's unrealistic just from a programmatic perspective.
That's more than a
You know.
mandate though, that's state law.
It's a mandate, that's
It's
the
an
state law.
unfunded
I mean,
mandate, yeah, it is, you're right.
I
That's
mean,
exactly what it is.
it's
I
gotta
can't
be
do
that
anything
way.
about it.
Okay, but I'm saying, you know, if you turn around and put money into a capital improvement or something else there, they automatically get that the following year. It's unrealistic, but that's the way it was written, okay? And I'm a believer in funding education, but I'm also, and you even heard it at the public meeting, as far as they've been able to do some things, they've moved money from the salary items, moved it over here and done this, and moved it over here and done this. That's the problem I have, okay, is that it's banked, if you will, okay? We can turn around and say, it's salaries, it's mandated, it's increases by the 2.6%, just like we did in the library, okay? It's mandated by contract, but I bet you if you scour that down a little bit tighter, you'd see, okay, this one's gonna be retiring, this is a potential to retire, this is a potential to retire, we can probably save here, 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 but why do that when I can come at the beginning of the year, I can hold my salary and I can hold my 2.61%, that way, if I'm short anywhere else in my budget, I have my goose that's laying the golden egg right here.
Right.
I can move monies throughout my budget, I can make things happen, I'm not gonna get a significant cut because I have that. That's my only pet peeve, is we really,
But we can't do anything about that, as you know.
well, no, we've tried in the past, and Dr. Collin, I thought did a great job, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
You know, she came back and we said, look, we're really looking at salaries is what's killing us, because it's not just the salaries, but it's the health benefits load that's on top of it, okay? And it's crippling us. If we can get that under, harness or whatever the proper term would be, but I mean, you know, that's one of the areas that absolutely kills us, okay? But they use that and funnel it in
I'm
place
not
else.
exactly sure what you're saying now. Okay,
What
in
he's
other
trying to
words,
say
you
in a
want,
nice way is we need to cut the education budget.
I'm sorry?
Well, let me get, let me go
I
into
don't know why I
that.
hear
I
that,
mean,
but.
just be fair, I mean, they should be able to come
Yeah,
back
but
to us and
wait,
say,
wait,
here,
wait a
Would-
you know?
All right, this
First,
is what I.
wait a minute, Dave, excuse me, I just have a question first. What are you getting at? Do you want us to be able to manipulate their budget once we give them the money? Is that what you're saying?
No, but I believe, okay, that's a different door, we'll open in a second.
Because we can't
okay?
do that.
We do have some oversight in that,
Forget about that.
okay, but let's not open that door yet, okay? The point I'm just trying to make is we take a look at what's happening within the community. The community, we know the roads are in horrible shape,
Yeah.
okay? We know the building maintenance is in horrible shape, and just like you were saying, we've cut that to the bone almost every single year, but we've always given the schools more money. And at some point, the tipping balance is about here, okay? And you gotta say, okay, we gotta, you gotta lighten the load in one in order to make up on the other.
Okay,
Because-
just a couple, well, go ahead.
Go ahead,
finish,
no.
'cause I just
Well, all I'm
wanted-
saying is the community isn't gonna go with the 2.29% increase. You know it and I know it.
Well, I got how much discretion do you think is in the education budget that they could cut?
How much do they move outside of salaries every single year?
They do every year, move it out. Here's the reality of it, and I'm
Well,
not
it's a
saying.
contract, of
I'm
course
not
they
saying, I
do.
know, I'm not
They're
saying.
moving it
no.
out of salaries
Yeah,
to other
because
line items.
In other words, they
And
have,
they have the ability to do that.
here's the reality of the
They
budget,
should.
okay? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to do it, up to them. They have 312 full-time equivalents or whatever, and every year they don't actually have that many. They have ones they wanna hire or whatever. But we had years in a row where it was was it $400,000? And that left over because they weren't hiring people. That's built into their budget
So
already.
these were teachers that were by attrition, were leaving, or
And
they.
they didn't refill it or whatever, and that's what Pat did a couple of years
But
ago.
that's, I just wanted to say one thing. I agree with what you said in part, but your arguments are based on two things that I think are false. First of all, any retirements that were gonna happen, imminent retirements, the vast majority would have already occurred. Because people were being run out of the schools in very large numbers. They were unhappy, there are studies that show they were unhappy, that they conducted themselves in-house, and so a lot of people left. So as far as looking for a large group of people who are gonna be leaving now, I think it's gonna slow rather than increase. The other thing was, they spent $250,000 last year on legal expenses. 4 years earlier, it was $19,000. Now, that money is something we could look at. Where did that, where's that gonna go? That obviously was a huge savings. One year, they spent 19,500 something, the next year it goes up to 225,000, and then I find out that they're paying workman's compensation for several months for 4 or 5 people who made some agreements to leave. I mean, that was a staggering bill. So, I mean, you're right about that. In the year that they cleaned off the roofs and they had the 400,000 to do it, I caught that, and I was the one who asked the question. But I think this is the only problem. I think we're doing one thing wrong here, okay? And I think the best way to pass the budget, instead of voting, you know, somebody won 4, somebody had 3, somebody had 3 to 2, or whatever it is, if we could agree on something and sell it to the people and say, look, this is it. This is where we're at. Everybody argues for the same thing, then you're gonna avoid the, you know, multi-referendum thing. But people have to be told. Why live in fantasy land? Gee, 2.92%, it's too big. That's what they're doing to us. Don't you understand in Hartford, when they cut the budgets and do all these things and reduce all the accounts that are going to the towns, that's real. It's not, you can't make it up. You have to say to the people, this is real. And you know, you have to explain to people that from now on, the balance, the dead zeros and all the rest of it, they're gonna cut more next year. What are we gonna do, come back and make it, cut it back again? Wait, just one final point for me. There's also, the one other factor is the value added to what we've already spent. Stafford High School is 21st out of 280 schools in the state. Now, that's better than they've ever done before. If we could find, you know, if they could find some other way of reducing their budget without affecting staff or losing what we all spent money for. We spent a lot of money to get to that point. And if we just disregard that, I mean, if you talk to the people on the highways, they'll tell you honestly, it doesn't matter to me. He told us last year. It doesn't matter if I get $500,000 more or less. I'm gonna pave 1 or 2 streets, that's it. You want the roads fixed, it's gonna cost, what did he say, $19 million, we have to be bonded and all that stuff. I mean, that's the reality of it. So the other thing is, we really don't want to lose the best thing we have in town. It does attract people to town, and it's the only thing we have.
Don't get me wrong on what I'm saying. Like I said, it's gonna be taken the wrong way when I first started talking, okay? Because I am not anti-education, okay? I am absolutely an advocate of holding a person's, you know, fingers to the whatever, frying pan, whatever the hell you wanna call it. Excuse my, you know, I mean,
Close.
you know, hey, I'm former military, okay? You're a state, okay? When a person puts in a budget, you always put it in 25% higher than you wanna get, and you fight it out that way because you know you're gonna get cut, okay? And that's just the way it is. But I also know you also have everything that's padded when you go in for a budget, okay? And all I'm saying is let's try and take the fluff away. I'm a firm believer, if you're not coming back in asking for more, we gave you too much, right from the
A
get-go.
budget is a wish of what you want.
Well,
not
first of
necessarily-
all-
And we're giving them a wish.
What about the 500,000 that they're giving back to us?
I was gonna say, 500,000 should be coming back to us, because even as was brought up by them in their thing, one of the things that they had
What'll be interesting
here-
is a lot of that money gonna come out of salaries because they didn't have those positions. The reality of the whole thing.
Dr. S has gone through every single
Yeah.
line item and
Right.
come up with it,
But I
not
guarantee
just
a lot of it's gonna be
salaries.
salaries, so.
So how do
I
you know it
guarantee
should
it's
be
gonna
900,000?
There's gonna be a chunk there, we don't know what it
We
is,
don't know.
but that's usually the number that's higher.
Right.
You look at their budget, if there's gonna be any significant cuts, it's gotta come out of salaries. And I'm not saying that's what they should do, I'm saying realistically, look at the budget,
What
it's all
they are
there.
saying, but what they're saying, okay, I'm sorry, I
Keep
didn't
in
mean to
mind,
interrupt.
yeah, keep in mind one really important thing, I've talked about this every year. How many students are in the system, okay? And I know they came in and said, hey, we're bigger than last year. But what happened last year? They're only up like 18 students. We were hearing about the catastrophe that was gonna happen when St. Edward's closed.
They were saying we're gonna go 50-something.
St. Edward's closed and they only went up 17 or 18 students, which tells me that a bunch of kids came from there, but they lost a whole bunch again. It's not going up again next year. They had that NESDAQ or whatever study done, that was called NESDAQ. Do you remember that whole study of the
I think it
schools?
is going up quite
And
significantly
and
next
that's
year.
projected to even keep going down, the amount of kids in the school. So I'm pretty sure, based upon that study and what we've seen for the last 8 years, enrollment's going down again next year, not going up.
They're
I know.
saying
People
no.
aren't here.
Nobody can
And
say, I mean,
I can't
You
guarantee
might
it, but
be
they're
right, but
saying
you might be
no.
wrong too.
Yes, I'm sorry, Neil,
Yeah.
yes.
kind of agree with what Steve has.
Neil,
at the
could you
meeting-
come up here so I can?
Yeah,
hear you?
sure. The meeting I went to last week had a lot of trends, and one of them was like through 1930, but it was, Ellington's going up, hopefully, or in their prediction, 1,500, and Town was going down 1,500, the way whoever this came from. The biggest thing was the 0 to 5 and the 5 to 10 was really going down for kids coming in and starting school. And the old timer said kind of kids are playing their video games more than they're getting married and not starting their families till they're older. But he made a point that
My
the
games
question,
to get married, that's your choice.
he was being funny about it, but he, there's this
It's
wicked
true.
trend in Connecticut that they're not making babies anymore almost. So my question is, if you're gonna look at cutting the budget eventually for the schools in the town is, are we gonna shrink a school? And we get a snapshot right now we're trying to take of Mary's New Ed and where are we, and Rich and I went through it for a bunch of years where you can't really today cut that maybe, but next year if you see it coming, we have some money in our big fund that maybe you could get through and bridge that if the budget will go down eventually for the mill rate to go down as if you close the school, and I'm not all for that, but I think that's what's.
That's the thing I was gonna say, if that was,
Heading our way a little
that
bit.
seems to be one thing they could do, close the school.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't even gotten that on their radar.
I don't wanna
right
say
now.
that's where I'm going here, but the other thing is, if you wanna fix the roads, you still need your good bond rating, and the more money we keep in our fund, the better. We didn't drop our bond rating where it really looked like we're going to.
I know, isn't that wonderful?
We could fix roads that way somewhere, so,
What's that percentage that they want now? Is it 12 or 14?
I don't know.
It's a joke.
No, I think it's, isn't it 10?
Yeah.
No,
it was- No,
definitely went up.
look at, wait a minute, time out. All right, that is the world's biggest joke, all right? There's not a state in the United States that has that kind of a surplus anymore. Look at how they're managing their stuff in Connecticut.
It's not the state,
And
it's the
when you look
town.
at Standard and Poor's and all these agencies, look at what they did before 2008. They certified that all these debts were sound and all the investments were sound. I mean, it's a joke. You can,
We pay our
You know
bond
what's
people
happening
for
right
the town
now?
a lot of money to tell us.
you know what's
how we
I know,
manage
you know what's
it.
happening right now? We have too much money, and that's why they cut us the way they did. If you were in desperate situation, or even if you were close to desperate, you did better. Hartford did better than anybody else did. The more money you had, the less you got. And that's the other
Inner
thing.
city
to look
always
at.
has better.
But the only big point that I want to make, and I think Neil was trying to make the same point, is they are telling me, without a shadow of a doubt, with what they've done for the budget, because they went through and cut it more before the public hearing. And if we cut it anymore, they're gonna lose positions. And I personally, right now, I know of 2 or 3 teachers that couldn't take a day off because they knew there was nobody in the system right now to take their class for them. I mean, that's getting bare bones,
Right.
in my opinion.
I agree, there's several, there's more than 2 or 3 teachers, there's probably 20 or 30 teachers that can't. But you turn around and we took a look at it a couple of years, they came out and they showed us, they were bringing a new IT professional on within the school system, or not IT, it was in the industrial arts area, they were bringing on the computer skills, technology and everything else, but the woodworking and something else, I mean, he was basically tasked at 42%. So I'm saying, this teacher's teaching 42%, okay, of his available labor, okay? So I'm saying, he only is teaching half of his load for his classes.
Okay,
Okay.
well, this is what I
So-
think we should do. You might be right, you guys might be right. I mean, we can talk about this ourselves, but none of us are experts. If you really think that their budget is padded, and you think you can drag a bunch out of it, call them back in here with us and make them give it up. Tell them exactly what you're telling us now.
They're not
Actually,
gonna
how
give
it
it up,
works is
because
you
that's the
guys
news
vote
that.
to.
Yeah, but I mean, you
Budget.
gotta say, you gotta set up a thing, if you
Right.
lost such and such amount of money, what would you do? How would you cope with it and so forth?
The
That's
500
what you have to do.
I can tell you
No,
right
I
now, because they
understand.
told me 42 times they're gonna lose teachers.
The 500,000, part of the 500,000 we're getting back is, I'm counting four positions right here that were not filled last year or this year that are
Yeah.
in the budget.
Yeah.
4 positions that we budgeted, we funded, they're in there, they were not hired. That tells me well, if a teacher's making, low-end teacher, $40,000, high-end 70, okay, or maybe more, I don't know. If it's I know if
That's
it's a.
40% for health
Yeah,
insurance.
there's another, and then you bang the health insurance on it, that's quite a bit of money right there. All I'm saying is,
What's real?
yeah, be more fair.
Well, find out
I
what's
mean,
real. I'd like
Well,
to hear
then
you
maybe
take
it's-
these people
How
on
can
and
it, how can
get,
it? It's not just me, it's us as a board.
of course, but I mean, I'd like to hear
you know,
that, There was a good question from Tony one time about how many people do we have in each class? That's a legitimate question. It should be asked. Are we below the state average? Are we at the state average? Are we above it? So that should be asked.
And I wanna say something, you know, about this, because I'm not anti-education. There's several people I know that moved into this town, who moved into this town because of the ratings of our school. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
And those are the people we need, the late twenties, early thirties.
Absolutely.
They came to this town because of the education.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you.
And I-
One of the things that we're looking at, the state cut us by 3%. Just the whole, I mean, looking at the whole budget.
Yeah.
What happens if we said, what happens if you have to lower your budget by 3%?
If we had to?
I mean, everybody, in other words, our job is not to go out and pick at anybody else's budget, it's just to get a general purpose of what we have to raise and what we have to lower. And we are looking, what the state cut us is 3%.
All we're
Either
doing,
that or we
all the
have to
board
tax
does is
more.
recommend how much to cut, it's up to them what they do.
Yeah, especially in education, they have total autonomy in how they deal with the budget once they get it.
And there's only two positions.
Not total.
There's only two
Just
positions
about
that were
still
not
with it.
filled and not going to be.
By law, they are not supposed to spend money on anything that is not in their final approved budget,
Okay.
by law.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, but,
Oh, they can't go
But they
above,
do.
no, they can't go
but they
above
do,
the
and
bottom
they
line.
have.
They can't go above the bottom line.
No, not above the bottom line.
He's saying
What I'm
even
saying
item.
is if we fund them in a certain area and in their budget, they don't include, let's say, someone to stripe the parking lot. They have excess money, they pay some guy to come in and stripe the parking lot, that is in violation of the state statutes.
No, it
It
isn't.
absolutely is, because
We
it
give
says,
them a budget, we do not have any say
Yes.
over how they use it.
it says
That's what
that
they
they
tell you.
cannot spend any money in any item that was not in their original budget that has been approved.
Well,
Okay,
let-
that's what the law says.
All right, let me just put that in context, okay? I was chairman of the rec commission for 19 years, okay? I left, I think, in 94 or something like that, 93. When I was there, in the 1970s, people got nearly electrocuted with the lights up there because the wires frayed and they would get some guys that, you know, he was an
Where are we
electrician, but he
talking?
wasn't, high school track. He wasn't, you know, used to that. He would get knocked down, knocked out, the lights would go out, they'd fail and everything else. That's why for years we had to pay one janitor to go out and turn the thing on so it would be done slowly the way it was supposed to. Okay, now here it is, 2018. It's still in the budget. They still haven't done anything but patch jobs up there. And you are in danger of losing really the whole use of that field for the high schools.
Yeah,
If we don't increase taxes to some degree here this year, people are gonna think it is fantasy land. Oh, they can make money, it's all fake. They get cut 3% from the state, but they pretend somehow there's no increase to us, it's make-believe. And I mean, people have to understand, if you vote for that stuff at the state level, you're voting to increase your taxes at the local level. And let me ask you one other question. If you don't take the education lobby to vote yes for a budget, we would have never passed a budget in this town since it started 300 years ago. Because it's always the people who have kids in the schools that come out to vote yes. Always. If they see that they're the ones that are taking a disproportionate hit, then, you know, you're never gonna get the budget passed, and we're gonna just go down, we're gonna be, you know, hitting bottom. I mean, we've gotta look for some kind of thing in the middle. I think you're right about really putting their feet to the fire and trying to see if there's something else that can be done. But I know that some of the town people I've heard that I just talked to casually, they're saying, well, the lights could be put out for another year. I mean, you can't keep doing that and have anything in the end, you
I don't
know?
think anybody wants to put the lights off, this is the first time it's actually been in the budget with a plan.
Oh, no, it was in before.
no, it was discussed every year, but it was
No,
not taken
it's
out.
actually in there right now.
Oh, I see.
Oh, it's in
what
there
you're
now,
saying.
yes,
For
yeah.
3 years. we
It's
could-
been
But it was
discussed
proposed,
and
it was
stopped.
proposed when I was there, back in the 90s, so.
Yeah.
it was-
It's been discussed several times.
It's been discussed.
When's the next public hearing?
April
April
25th, is it? 24th, 25th?
All right, the reason why, that's also really important, because how many meetings do they have between now and then? They're actually on vacation the week before.
They are on vacation the
So
week
if
before.
if you're gonna ask for them to make any adjustments to their budget, they probably need to know it like sometime yesterday.
I'm not asking them to make any adjustments to
No,
the
I'm just saying, if
budget.
the board decides to ask them, if you were to ask them, hey, if we're gonna ask you to, when do you need to know by? They're probably gonna say, we need to know tonight. We
Well,
need to know
we've gotta
tomorrow."
have them in first, because I'm not gonna make any recommendations without asking them. Like, Brian was saying 4 positions, there's 2 positions in there that are gonna be filled, the other ones are still not gonna be filled.
They're not gonna tell you what positions to fill or not, they
Doesn't
never
matter.
have.
What did you do? You
You're,
went
it's not
through
up
the
to
budget.
them to tell you what you should do with the budget. It's up to you to tell them, this is what we are gonna propose to the town.
And the question is, and it's a semantics, it's always a semantics and it's a play on words. We're gonna lose teachers. How many teachers are they gonna lose? Are they gonna lose 2? And are those the 2 that they don't have now that they're planning on getting? So really, they're not losing anybody, but
You're
for
wrong,
us.
it's not a ploy. It's not a ploy.
Well, that's what we have to find out.
Right.
We don't, you're right,
No,
we don't
but
know.
for us, if they don't have them now, they're not, you can't lose something you do not have.
And I understand that, and I do not believe, I believe Pat was capable of doing that, I believe Teresa Fishman was capable of doing that.
Pat
I
did
don't
do it.
believe these 2 people will do that.
Yeah, and I
I
can't.
truly
I'm
don't,
not-
I've talked to them at length, and I don't believe it.
So the only thing I could come back to, because I haven't cited it with you guys before, but if they always give you back money every year, where does it come from?
Well,
They generally don't give
That's
back,
very-
it's only given back the past 2 years.
Okay, so for 2 years in a row, they're giving you back in excess of
But they're not actually giving it
$500,000.
back,
No,
for
not
the past couple of years, we put
Usually
that
it's
in there.
50,000, but
Yeah.
this year it's gonna be 500?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does it tell you? It
A
tells
lot
you
of-
that
As,
They could.
it tells you that the budget's not right.
Yeah, but
As
a lot
Paul
of that,
said.
a lot of that has to do with the energy savings. As
A
that stuff
lot
came
of it.
online, their bills dropped in half, and then they went down another quarter.
Okay,
Yeah, but
so
see,
you-
like,
Well,
Rich
we're
made a
still-
point, 3
they
years ago, they
saved
gave back over
$536,000 in the energy this year.
Listen, I think that's great, but at the end of the day, it's still our money. I'm gonna go back to it's our money and it should come back. We shouldn't give them money if they're gonna give it back to us.
They have the same.
Let's budget
Well,
it right from the go,
No,
that,
that was something that Lisa wanted put in there, just as we're putting it in the library, but they're not necessarily using it. We put it in there, it is gonna come back, but it's in there because of the energy.
It's in there because the
They wanna keep it in there.
loan has to be paid back.
Correct.
And that's the only way
And
that
debt
you can
service.
The whole agreement at the
appropriately
beginning
tap
was
into
until
the
they
areas
stay
that are
flat,
using
that
it.
Because of the debt
So-
service, right.
Yeah.
They have to,
Let's
right?
explain it to Tony, on the
Yeah.
utility project, when we decided to move forward with that project, it was flatline our utilities. So we budget the same all the time, and then what it does is it does come back, and then it goes to pay the loan.
We have to
the
pay
town
off
the town pays the loan?
The town
Yeah,
pays
town
it.
pays
So
it.
the town, the
Comes out of
library,
that.
the Board of Ed all
Right.
do the same amount of money every year, and the
And then it
utilities
comes
are
back,
less,
it
it
gets
goes
paid
to
in
the
the debt
fund,
service.
and it pays
So
the,
there's no money coming back really, because you're just using that money to pay the bill that you owe.
well, no, I asked that question the other night of Christine.
Mhm.
She said that 500,000, none of that was utility money. She said that's
I
something.
know, and I
that-
don't understand that, because Dr. S said it was, so I don't know.
Well, we're gonna find out, because if it is, that's nothing. Because we already planned on it, because we need that to pay.
Yeah, to pay the loan, sure,
Yeah.
to pay the bond.
Isn't she the accountant?
But part of the reason for
Christine.
setting it up
I
like
asked
that
Christine,
was so
I
we
trust
could
that when she
add
gives me an answer,
utilities.
she was very sure about it.
And transfer money
I
out.
would take that.
If we give them 100,000, we're taking 100,000
I think it was what,
back.
a grain of salt or?
No,
no, no.
So
She's
they've
the
been known to
accountant,
pay.
I would
She's
take
not,
it.
She's not an
she's not the
accountant.
accountant.
No, I understand, but
She's
I
a
asked her,
secretary with a lot of experience.
I asked her the question,
Close
she
to
really
2.
understood it.
She does understand it, she's been with the school a long
They
time.
hired, no, they hired a new business manager.
I'm not saying she doesn't understand it, she understands it very well.
Hey Jane, 6 years ago, who do we deal with that was there 6 years ago?
I believe it was Christine, wasn't it?
Christine's the only one that's still there from 6 years
Right.
ago
Yeah.
that we dealt with.
Right, the whole thing turned over, you're right.
So,
Oh, yes, Tony?
so can we get a list of all their employees and what they pay and how much their hours are and what do they do? Is that something that they supply you so that we
They
know?
gave us one last year.
So we know that
year
the numbers are
before.
right?
But you know
I
the
mean, so
numbers
that
are
the-
right,
that-
but that's not, I mean, that's not.
That they're working, that they're.
No.
But when I present a budget at work,
Yeah, but
it's
this
pretty
is different.
detailed, you know, and it
We
has to
could,
be
we've done that in the
salaries that
past.
have to be right, they can't be fluff.
We've done that in the past, but there's no way you or I, or probably anybody here, can look at that and say, okay, you need this, or you don't need that, you need this, you don't need that. That's part of their.
But are they working, they're not working, are they retiring, or they're not retiring? Is that something that's all just?
I don't believe they've ever, honestly, I don't
Okay,
think they've ever
I
chipped
don't
us
know,
on
I
that.
just-
I mean,
Here's kind of the way I look at it, whether you decide to ask them to cut or not. Right now, what you have in front of you is if you don't ask them to make any cuts soon, that's what you're presenting to the town at the next budget hearing.
that's right.
Okay, well, number one, we've got to get in the second budget from Mary Minna to find out what hers is.
Yep.
Okay. Which I don't think it's going to be
I don't
that
think
much
it'll
of a
change much
raise.
at all, no.
Okay, and then we're gonna go with this one from the school. Now, if you are thinking that the school can give us more back, I think it's time to bring them in and talk to them, and have them talk to us again. Maybe we can come up with something together. But I don't feel comfortable just telling them, especially when I've been told that the teachers' positions are gonna go next, that, yeah, okay, well, we're gonna still cut you 200,000.
I think it might be up to them, though, the way he finished up, nobody gave him any feedback that this
Yeah.
is bad, and he said, okay,
Yeah.
and if we have to cut anything, we're gonna cut teachers, so don't bug me, kinda. And I like the guy a lot, I'm not saying I took that wrong,
Yeah.
but it's kinda like, okay, nobody argued with one thing.
You've never heard that before though, right? You know that, hey, you're gonna cut teachers.
I see you guys almost have heart attacks out there when you say you're gonna cut one, you know,
Yeah.
the principal, so I think you gotta tell them, we think you should cut 200,000, what you're coming back with maybe, or, you know.
Well, I think we're gonna have to have a motion
What do you
to
guys
some sort of a
feel is
thing.
an
Well, the other thing is,
acceptable tax
we
increase
have to
this year?
make a decision, though.
That's
We
a
have
tough call.
3%.
I mean, that's really a good question.
Well, I mean, how many
We have
years
to
can we
make
go
up
without
somehow.
raising taxes?
Either we have to get more income,
That's
or we have to
fantastic.
cut.
That's
I'm not saying that we're not gonna raise taxes, but
Well, that, but
Because
that's
next-
raising
One,
the,
one
next
person
year,
at a time,
20
we
is
have
gonna be even
Tony.
crazier.
I'm sorry, Tony,
I'm sorry.
say what you were gonna say.
No, I said, what's a fair, acceptable increase in tax, if we have to have one? I think 6.7% is a little high. Next year, it's gonna be worse. So you can't go for 6% and then go for another 8, and then go for another 12 and just say, suck it up, team, and,
But you will have to do that, because that's what they're doing. From Washington right
And
down,
you-
that's what's
so
happening.
no one, you have to learn how to cut. I'm sorry, but if the majority of your budget is the school, which is $30 million rounded, and you're not increasing students, and you're not, you know,
Oh, yeah,
I
they are.
understand, and you have mandates and you have everything else, but maybe it has to change with the state, where the mandates have to change. Maybe that's where it starts, so I don't know.
Try to get that done.
Try, yeah.
The education lobby.
Man, I would be thrilled if you could get that done.
Can I make one point? I would like to have it recorded clearly by everybody, that my family did not
Got that, Aaron?
conform to the declining number of children. My son has 5
Grandkids.
boys. From infant through 11, and they're hoping to have another one, so believe me.
Here's
That's on record.
they look for a girl.
Here's a number to think about. How much is the school, the Board of Ed budget going up this year? What's that number?
According to this,
Yeah, I don't believe that.
okay, the 17-18 budget is going up $271,000.
Okay, and Mary's budget right now is going up $69,000. So let's say that we told them both, you can't have those increases, right? And
If you told them what?
you can't have those increases, you gotta cut those out. So that's $350,000 you take off this projection, all right? So you're still going back to the town, and you're gonna tell them, all right, we're only gonna have a 2 mil increase, not 2.29. In other words, even cutting,
I know,
you're
but-
still,
But this is the one thing, I agree with, I'd like to see how this plays out, I'm open-minded, but I think this is what they've always done here. Do you wanna know, if you compare Stafford with other communities, do you wanna know why our community center is in a abandoned trooper, state police troopers barracks? Do you wanna know why the town bus is 85 years, 5 or 6 years older than Ellington's or Enfield's or anywhere? Because we've always done this. This was Benny Musio's idea, never increase taxes. You've got to hold the line, hold on. So pretty soon you go back. I can remember when the roads were good here. At least they were decent. And we have a large number, mileage, in terms of miles. We're what, the third biggest state, town in the state. This is what they always did. And it was always, the same argument was used over and over again. People won't understand it, they'll never vote for it, they'll never accept it. Well, they won't if they don't understand that this is reality. But when you read the newspapers and you see every day that, you look at the federal government, they're cutting all kinds of programs, the state's cutting all kinds of programs. You've got to say to people, this is it, gang. This is the reality of it. You're going to have to realize it. I don't like the tax increases either. You're supposed to be saving them at the state level, according to the people who are advocates of austerity there. But they have to understand this. If we go one more year with, we're going to fudge this, and then what happens? All of a sudden you're hit with what, 4 or 5 mils, and then you really have a
The
problem.
problem is getting it through.
yeah,
everybody's
that's kind of
unique.
good. You guys here decide what gets presented to the town. It's not from Mary, it's not from the Board of Ed.
I
You
understand.
guys decide what goes to the
I
town.
know, I
And
understand,
if
I
they'll
try
take
to
it-
tell everybody that
And
we're
if they'll
meeting.
take it, they'll take it. If they won't, they won't.
Well,
But here's the-
if everybody is, if we come up with a budget that's a real compromise, and everybody supports it we all just have to go out to the community and tell them, and you have to say it the night of the public hearing. You have to explain to them, we lost this much money from Hartford. That's real money. Now it's gone. We have to make it up and let them know that.
I mean, another thing that we have, and it's in general, in the town, across the town, and Dave just kind of brought it up to my attention. It's a misconception, it's misinformation.
Yeah, so that kills
People
us.
misspeak, and with all due respect, you're talking about our bus being old. I bought a brand new bus with a grant that was paid 80% by the grant. It was, 3-4 years ago. So as far as the other towns, but it's that type of discussions that people have
It hurts, of course.
that hurts the town. And as first selectman, I sat there at town meetings and had discussions with people that put out a lot of misinformation. But people believe it because of maybe
Who tells it to 'em,
who
yeah.
tells it to them. So as a community, we need to do a better job at filtering ourselves.
Good information.
No,
That same year
you're
you're talking
absolutely right.
about, Dave,
Yeah,
they actually, the town, voted on a zero increase budget, turned it down, okay? And there was a woman in the audience here right afterwards, and saying, I don't like this budget. And I think it was you or Ed or whoever was here said, why don't you like it? She goes, because I don't want my taxes to go up. It was a 0 mil increase.
I know.
But people thought their taxes were going up.
There's a tremendous belief in that. That's part of this politics of resentment where you can try to convince everybody that everything the government does is wasteful and doesn't produce anything and it's wrong. But somebody's got to, at some point, draw the line and just say that, if we all believed in the budget, whatever, instead of having it be a split where the 4 Democrats beat the 3 Republicans and then the next year the 4 Republicans beat the 3 Democrats, if we had something that everybody could believe in and you could explain to people, this is the truth and have really a forceful display, then maybe, we would possibly have a chance of getting it passed. But so many times, people will come up to me and say, I vote no on any increase every year, I've done it for 27 years. That's no answer. I mean, and maybe that's what they did do for 27 years, and they found it personally satisfying, but it doesn't help us at all here. I like to see it come up with, if the schools are really, padding them and protecting themselves, and everybody does to some extent. I think it's much less than it was in the past, historically, but I think if they're doing that, then they have to give it up. This is when the rubber hits the road. Same thing with the town or anybody else. But really, our infrastructure, I mean, it's gone, it's terrible compared to what it used to be.
Then maybe what we should do is proposing that the Board of Selectmen increase their budget to pay for some of that.
I think you're really talking about increasing it $100,000 for repairs isn't going to get the job done. You probably have to bond $10 million or $20 million to do your roads, if that's what it takes, that's
But
something
the
we
point
have
I'm
to look
making
at.
is, don't have them cut it, give them more money to do the job.
Well-
Give the money for Bruce to hire somebody, so he can actually spend the money that we give him to get everything done.
Don't you think whatever he does, we're getting real value on it? I mean, it's
Oh, big
quality
time.
work and it's cheaper than if you
Yeah.
ever subcontracted it. I mean, he's good at what he does. And no, I believe in that, of course.
Since
I
I've
think
been
Bruce is a
here,
great value to the town.
I've sat here 3 months, I've heard, we need a town manager, because we have to change the direction we're going. We've got to get better numbers from the school board. We need to have a paid fire department. So these are all things that this town's gonna be looking at. The roads are terrible, so, you're really talking about spending $30 to $40 million in the next 5 years. How are you gonna do it? You're not gonna do it with bill increases, so, you just can't be
See,
done, so.
that's the problem
You
with.
could, but then you
You're
get
gonna have to
the
bond
roads.
it. You're gonna have to bond
Well,
it.
you can
You can do the
advertise it
roads,
out
you can
over,
bond,
you know.
You can't party, it's called the lynching
Bond,
party.
the
No,
fireman's
but we
pay.
gotta, well, there's something else coming
And
up,
the
but we have to
projections
talk
are
about that
that,
tonight.
that the state will even reduce itself to the town next year.
Oh, it's gonna do it for sure.
Because it also is gonna be less money from the feds down to the state.
That
So-
the Commission on Fiscal Stability and Economic Growth, they proposed a whole restructuring of the tax system, which would produce more revenue. Even though they said it was revenue neutral, it's not. But the people it's coming from are exactly people like the ones we represent. People who have, not high incomes, that have to use the roads, buy gasoline, do all the rest of it. They're the ones that are gonna get socked, But, do we have any obligation to try to keep the community a decent place to live? I think we do. And I think, you know, you can only go downhill so long. I'm not saying that to
I'm
you.
not trying
I'm
to
just
kill
saying, I understand
education,
that.
don't get me.
What I would like
I
to do,
understand that.
what I would like to do right now, okay, is number one, see what Mary's budget comes in as, which we don't think it's gonna be a lot more. I will call the schools and see if they can squeeze any more out, give us a good budget for the second public hearing. And then we'll have to make the decision whether we go with whatever, the 2 mills at an increase, and then if it doesn't pass, we have to start cutting. It just might pass.
Excuse to cut the 347 rate or whatever it was, but I don't know if it was our group, what we did 5,000 or something to advertise that this is right and have all you guys sign that we're all in this together kind of thing. We did that in the.
It's
one of the
time we did
papers.
that, I think. you know.
It came from the Board of Finance, I think, that we can't find anything else. The state raised us, it's gonna be 2 mil.
So you think,
Did it work?
Did it, Rich?
I don't think it worked, I think it upset more people
Did
than
it?
spent
Okay.
money sending out.
Was it? Okay, I don't
Well,
remember.
get
how
a it
was.
private organization
One
to
of the
pay
years
for
we
that,
passed
the
without
PTOs money or
anything,
something, you know.
and then the other year, they voted down to 0 increase, so we had 5 votes one year, and one year we had 0.
Don't you think we need to have face-to-face meeting one last time with the Board of Ed?
I have no problem doing it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the-
I'll even walk in and sit down and talk to the superintendent and say, I've got some concerns if you
Yeah,
don't
well, I'd
mind.
like to hear you
And,
guys
know.
ask the question. I don't think
well, I would like to do it as a board.
Yeah, no,
It's
no,
okay
I
with everybody.
understand, but I mean, give them a heads up and say, here's what we wanna know, so if you don't mind, you know, or, no, I'll stay out of it, and we'll wait until, you know, he comes in, we'll ask him, I mean, you know.
If you feel, and obviously from tonight's conversation, everyone feels that way, that the Board of Ed can give back more, okay? I personally don't know exactly what or anything else, and I think it's a good idea to talk to them. We just might come up with a good
They
solution.
may not, but I'm pretending I'm from Missouri.
Conrado?
No, it would be a good
Show
idea to do that, but one of the things that we will hear from them is that, even though that we're getting less resources from the state, the budget for the school is tied up so much by legislation. For instance, it's a number over here about 25% of the students in Stafford, in schools here, in special ed. So every year, the special ed segment of the students
Yeah, you
is
have no
been
choice
increasing.
there.
Because you need more
You're
teachers for
100%
that.
right.
And you know what, the ratio for instead of having a classroom with 20 teachers, no, you got 2 or 3 or 4 per teacher per
Right.
day.
Conrado, I've heard that people are coming into Stafford because of our special education programs.
It runs well, but
They
that
used
would be
to, I
one
don't
of
know if they are.
the other is the transportation, Brian,
You're still on.
Brian. The transportation, we are also tied up, we have $3 million or
Yeah.
something like that going into transportation. If we reduce it, we'll be sued. So we may get into a situation in which town will have to rebel against the legislation from the state. But it cannot just be one town, but several towns.
Right.
But we'll have to be doing things illegally.
Well,
Because
of
we're
course it-
mandated to do it, but we don't have the funding.
No, it's coming, because,
It's
like I'm
coming,
saying,
it's
what's
right.
happening is the revenue that the state's collecting has dropped tremendously
Yeah.
over the last 20 years. And there's no way that's gonna be made up. I mean, the economy should pick up, and there should be, some new companies are moving in, like that 1,000 jobs for the Infosys company that's coming to Hartford. Those things will help a lot. And, you know, some of the companies are beginning to hire more people here. Black & Decker's building their new facility in Hartford and all that stuff. But you're not gonna find ever it's gonna go back to what it was before.
Sure, no.
The whole system was built on patronage coming from Hartford, and they could, you know, that would sustain all the communities. Now, that's gonna be gone. So everybody's gonna have to confront this new. That's why, if you talk to people in Hartford who are pushing this, they're gonna say, you're gonna have to consolidate your schools. Summers and Stafford are gonna have to have one high school. There's gonna have to be a consolidation of bus services where they, you know, the same service does 3 towns or whatever. I mean, they're looking for, when they're talking about reducing the number of towns, they wanna reduce the 169 towns down to something like 48. And then they think they're gonna get economies of scale. Are people ready for that? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, that's the old-fashioned model, but that's what they're telling you have to do. This is interesting, though. It's real-life political economy, you know.
Erin, when's our next meeting?
Next Monday.
Next
Why don't we-
Monday?
Yeah, why don't we ask the education people?
I think we better have
Mary,
the
too.
Board of
education.
Ed have a
Can you be here next Monday?
Yeah, they might have a
It
meeting
should
then.
be.
I'll check now.
We could start with a call joint with that. and then they-
Well, is there another day?
I know, no, I should be, I mean, I
You
can't
better be. You
guarantee.
started it.
After
You
next-
started all of this, you're gonna be there.
After next
I don't know
Monday?
enough to talk.
What's the next meeting after that?
The next Monday for us?
There's a reason I'm
Yeah.
asking.
You make
I
sense,
think
that's
it's
all
the
you gotta
public
do.
hearing.
It's what?
The
No.
public,
The
let me,
public
let
hearing?
me pull it up on my phone real quick. I don't wanna see.
So after next Monday is the 4th, is the public hearing.
No, the public hearing's the
That's the
28th,
25th.
25th, yeah, no, I think there's one more week.
Yeah, so they won't
We only
be
have one more
around.
meeting.
They won't even be around, that's why we can cut them, they're all away on vacation.
No, they'll be here
That's how you
next
normally
Monday.
do it.
If I could,
Can we get a letter out to them, Mary, to appear for us Monday?
if I could interject here.
Right
One
now?
of the things that I found very interesting, and that was brought up by, what's his name, Modus? Modus, okay, thank you, okay, was looking at trying to bring some of the students back in that with the special needs thing. And I think that there's an opportunity perhaps that's there that I think, you know, if we're looking at reducing our educational facilities that are here, okay, does it make sense to turn around and take one of those facilities and turn it into a special needs facility, where now you're looking almost at an economies of scale type of thing? I mean.
Yeah, but
when
you gotta have certified people needing
Oh,
each
yeah.
certification.
You
Yeah, but you
almost
know
have to
what?
hire people.
Maybe this is where we get more revenue too.
Exactly, because if you turn
Oh,
around, you have a school that's designed specifically for that. Now we're not farming it out to the tune of $100,000 or
You'd have to ask
$190,000.
experts in education what they have to
You might
have to
have
do
kids
that.
coming from other towns
So
here.
you don't
Right.
close the school, you do.
Right.
You change.
You
the
turn it
school.
around into a money-making situation, because now you have a facility that is a special needs facility
Yeah.
that you may not, again, I'm not an expert on this, you may not need one-on-one. You might be able to get one-on-three because of it's concentrated.
Yeah, and that's
You're
another kind
providing
of
meeting
restructuring.
educational needs, exactly.
You
I
know,
mean,
Summers in Stafford could pool their special ed, I don't know what they have or anything, but I mean, but are people willing to do that, and can they do it and meet the requirements of the
Aaron, can we
state?
get a
I
letter
see
out
them
for
on
them
the
for
road
next
every
Monday?
day, you know, these
The
buses.
Board of Ed?
They have a meeting next Monday also.
Well, we could
Next
meet
Monday?
them up there and then do what we did before, couldn't we? We could meet them at the elementary school and then leave, and they can
They have a
their
scheduled meeting.
I know, but can't they move theirs back? I mean, that's what they've done before.
I don't know.
Could we meet at 6:30? Do they have,
Yeah, we could do that.
Their meeting starts at 6:30.
oh, it does start at 6:30.
See, bus-wise,
They knew you were gonna try and do that, right?
And
Yeah, Monday,
then, no,
Friday,
neither
Monday,
the Board of Ed nor
Tuesday,
the Board of
Saturday.
Finance meets until the 25th.
That,
So you
They should
could
have
meet
all
on the
that.
23rd.
yeah,
So
we
see,
should.
Mary was gonna be
Or you
definitely.
could meet on the 11th.
Absolutely.
You can meet on the 11th.
The 11th is a Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 11th.
Here's the thing, we meet with them
I
on the
can't, I'm
11th.
sorry, I can't hear Aaron at all.
Okay.
If
Wednesday, the
they,
11th, we could meet.
Wednesday, the 11th, neither board has a meeting. Same with Monday, the 23rd.
But look, take a look at their schedule.
I
They don't
am.
have another meeting after the 11th.
They-
No, the
they-
23rd.
Both boards meet early, and then neither board has a meeting until the public hearing.
Yeah, so unless you get them this
Wednesdays-
information before next Monday.
Yeah, but I have to ask Brian.
Yes.
Wednesdays are better for you. So would you look, can you check your phone? Is April 11th okay for you?
Well, I'm pretty sure Monday is okay, but well,
That's a night, well, we're meeting.
They have a meeting Monday.
Yeah.
No, but we could meet with them earlier,
Yeah.
or we could do what
We
we
could-
always do,
Here's the
go to
thing,
the
Jane, if
school
you
and
give
then.
them, if you meet with them on the 11th, right, and give them information we want you to cut, they're not gonna be able to do that
Yeah.
before the
And
public
get back to
hearing.
us.
Sure.
We don't have
They wouldn't be able to do it for the public hearing, they don't have a meeting.
So if we can meet with them on the 23rd or the 11th,
Well, the 23rd, they're not gonna be able to do
No,
it because
that's
our
only 2
meeting.
days.
They need the information probably this week
Yeah.
in order to be able to make any adjustments to their budget.
So tell them they gotta cut it by 5, they'll come back and watch
Okay,
it.
realistically, what you can do also, I believe, is after the second budget hearing, you can then vote to make cuts that
That's
then
what
they
I was
have to
saying
provide.
before.
That's the other thing.
That's what I said before. Let's hear what they have at the
But that
second.
budget then
public-
doesn't get presented to the town again, so is that any issue?
that
Well,
is
no,
an
we'll have
issue
the town-
because what you vote,
The
that's
town will be
gonna go to town.
presented.
And
The
we were
town meeting will
already
be the
spent
following
$2,000 an hour.
Could we push the
The
town
town
meeting
budget
back, or
will
have
be
you already
presented
had
at
the
the
whole
second
thing?
public
We've
hearing.
already
With
pushed
the-
it
And the
back.
Board of Ed will be
And
presented
then 2 weeks
again.
after that will be the referendum, or maybe,
Well, we'd have to
I'm
push
sorry,
the
maybe
whole
it
thing
might
back,
be 2 weeks.
given the fact we don't know what.
Right now, what you have is, that's the budget they're presenting, and you're gonna vote to present to the town, unless you decide to make changes.
I know, but we, I
We're
wanna.
not gonna vote that night, period. I can tell you that right now. We're gonna be
No,
done
no,
with
what I'm
that.
saying is,
The
and
transportation.
this is what I was just saying with Aaron, even if after the second hearing, you said,
we want you to make cuts. Now we have a problem because we can't then get that to the town meeting because the cuts haven't been made and presented to the people yet. The only way to get the Board of Ed to make cuts right
No,
now.
no, we can make cuts to, we can present anything we want to the town meeting. I mean, we're just doing a public hearing. That budget doesn't necessarily have to go to the town meeting. With the budget that comes from here is the one that goes to the town meeting.
Yeah. But
In
I,
years past, we haven't just gone to the second hearing without asking anybody to do anything.
yeah.
No, we haven't, but it's a strange year.
I don't see anything wrong with pushing the dates back, given the fact that we don't have any information from Hartford. It's not us that caused this problem, they did. So I mean, as we used to have the referendum on May such and such, if it had to be pushed back a week, and the meeting, public meeting had to be pushed back, if you haven't already advertised them. I
No,
mean,
they're
we-
not advertised yet.
Okay, we have to give them a chance to respond. I'm not gonna vote to
No,
cut
no,
their
no, no,
budget
no.
unless I hear their answers,
Dave,
you know?
what we're saying here, relax, what we're saying here is, we are gonna leave things status quo for the second public hearing. Okay? Mary's budget will be a little different, because she already said it was going to be. We're gonna leave the things alone for the second public hearing, then we come back to this table. If we feel that we still have to cut, then we'll tell them we have to cut before it goes to the town meeting.
Is that what we're saying? I didn't think
That's what I
so.
think we're saying.
No,
With,
they're proposing to have a conversation with them before.
Yeah, I want the conversation before.
How are we gonna do that?
Why can't we meet next Monday? 'Cause we
Because
have a
they've
meeting-
got a meeting.
She'll push it
back,
back,
but why
like they
can't we
always
join
do.
it?
Well, I don't know that, but if they've got their meeting all planned, I don't know if we can just
You know
barge right in.
what? We got the money, they'll move it anywhere they need it.
I mean, if there's a conversation that's had with them saying, this is the general, I won't say consensus, but the general
Just feeling.
discussion and feeling of the members that they may be looking for some cuts, give them a heads up, and we have another meeting, let them see what they can come up with. We have another meeting before the public hearing,
That's what I want to do.
and meet with them.
Yeah.
But give them a heads up beforehand to say, this is the general discussion.
so that they
Well,
they
just begin
present
with, just begin with one piece of information though. Tell them, we're facing an almost 3 mil increase, the way it stands now. Let them know that right up front.
And we don't think the town's gonna accept it, so let's
And
figure
we're
out.
that's how
facing
we
a
should start.
rejection.
Listen, I agree with you that we
We're
should all,
facing
you
a
know,
rejection in the
present a
referendum.
united front, whatever we come
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah.
I think we should do it this way, okay? I think we should go ahead, and I'll even make a motion that we cut their budget $271,736.64, okay? I'll make that motion, we'll put it back to them and ask them to come on in and defend their position, and that way, they know it's real.
Is that gonna be enough?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't wanna cut, my
Well,
only opinion
first of
is I don't
all-
wanna
first
cut
of all,
anything.
We can't cut below we can't cut below
That's
state.
true.
Last year,
So
yeah.
if we bring it
Hey,
271,
hold on,
Yeah.
hold on. Last year is not what you're looking at there.
what?
Don't forget the revenues they added back in. It's not 271,000.
Yeah, but the only thing we can take is another 35, we can say 300,000, because 35,000 that they took out for, no, wait a minute, it wasn't that, it was the Medicaid reimbursement is $100,000, we can take 371. Because they're asking for Medicaid reimbursement, which really, that's a gee whiz estimate.
Okay.
So-
Okay,
Right.
first of all, first thing everybody said was, we called, we tell them, we are looking for some cuts from the school and from the town, we will be. And can we participate in their meeting Monday night? That's the first scenario. Does everybody like that
I
idea?
like that a lot.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I move that we,
I thought I just made a motion.
Right, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you make a motion.
That's gotta be followed through.
I didn't hear you make a motion,
Yeah,
Brian.
I said I'll make a motion that we cut 271,736.64. And you
Is there a
said, is that
second?
gonna
I'm
be
sorry.
enough? So,
Is there a
you know what?
second?
Let's turn around and increase it by the Medicare reimbursement is $100,000, so I make a motion, we cut their budget $371,736.64.
Is there a second?
that's way, I don't know, that's a staggering.
There's a
amount.
second.
I'm gonna second it.
Can you say
So
that
there's-
number slower, please?
There's a budget on, there's a motion
I
on
got
the
the
table
371.
that we cut.
$371,736.64.
Okay,
It's a difference
Now,
on
there's
this
a
one.
discussion on the motion,
And it's been
right?
seconded.
Okay.
Hang on, relax. It's been seconded.
Don't be
It's
discussing.
now, is there discussion?
Yes, discussion. Staggeringly high amount, you're gonna polarize the whole situation and trying to get them to agree to something or give us something to work with. That's too high. The original amount, try
Okay,
it.
here's what I expect them to do now, okay? I want them to come back and defend the position of where they're
Yeah.
at, okay?
Well, they can defend it with the 275 as
Okay.
well as they can the 3. whatever.
Yeah, but 371's gonna get us a whole lot more leverage on them than anything else.
But it's so
Okay.
unrealistic.
Is there any other,
I-
okay, is there any other discussion? Yes, Tony?
And I agree with Brian in this particular case, and I'm not disagreeing with David, but I think what's gonna happen is, they're gonna come back with a number. So, if they come back with 250, maybe that's the number we live with.
Well, yes
I mean,
and no. Let me just point something out. He makes a motion to cut it, you second it, it gets approved, they have to do that.
Oh, well then,
That's it.
done deal then, right now.
Okay, well, no, we gotta vote.
See, that's why the 350
That's-
thing
okay.
is not,
A motion's
I
on
mean,
the
it's too high.
table, it's been seconded, is there any other discussion?
Yes, I think we should go with a percentage rather than a number.
okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have to vote.
That's, all right,
So
well,
that's-
we have to vote on the original
Let me
motion.
just point out, if you talk percentage of their budget, 3%'s like $900,000.
I mean, I'd say that's, we're in trouble by 3%.
Yeah,
Yeah, so 3% is a whole lot more than what I'm asking.
Yeah, but I don't think we should nitpick them.
Okay,
No, call the question. and-
I am calling it now, please, the
No, I
motion-
can recommend calling the question, that's what I was doing. You have to call it, but I can
Well,
say.
you recommend, and then it has to be seconded, and then the vote to call it for the vote, it goes.
what's the motion on the table right now? 371?
Motion on the table right now is to cut the school by 371,000. That is the motion on the table, it's been seconded, and with everybody, and I'm gonna call individual, vote on it. Mr. Pellegrino? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Bagley?
Yes.
Mr. Moriarty?
No.
Mr. Fisher?
No.
Mr.
No.
Walsh? Jane Slater? No. Motion denied.
Okay,
Okay,
so
you
then
need
I'm
to vote
gonna
on
make
that,
a
too.
motion that
Huh?
we accept Fran's recommendation of a 3% cut.
Well,
didn't
no,
make
I
a
said
motion.
a percentage rather than a number.
I thought
I,
you
we
said-
have to. we have
I
to
thought
make
I
a-
heard you say 3, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
I said
made a
earlier I
motion.
should say 3.
Okay, so what number would you like to throw out there?
Then I'll revise I'll make a new motion and cut 271,736.64, which you felt
Why
was
don't
more
we
in
do
line.
what we said? Oh, fine, Brian.
I think it's
we'll
fair,
go
hold
with
on.
it. We've got a
Wait,
motion.
Let me
it's Fran's
make
Oh,
Fran's
a
making
comment.
sense here.
Okay.
Basically, what, 3% is what we really were denied by the state this year. So that was really the cut we had to make up. But on the other hand, if we look at, what's her name, Lisa's numbers that she gave us, that's 4.4%, that's almost 4.5% that we're in trouble. So, we really need to look at how much are we gonna go back to the town and ask for? And how much do we wanna see if we can bring back? So even if it was like 2.2%, and then we ask for a 2% increase, somewhere along the line, we're gonna have to balance both of them. So I think that if I had to make a recommendation, I kinda would like to talk them, see where we could go, and then we can pick a percentage.
I would too.
Can you just, point of order, just, you said you can't give them this vote, they have to cut it. Is that after it goes back to the public, is when you guys make the recommendation?
That's
Or
where
is
I'm
this-
coming from.
Because right now,
No.
that has to get cut, if you guys pass that?
No.
No,
Everything,
it
thing
failed.
to this last 6 years, the
Right now, it would be-
Board of Finance gets the budget,
Yeah.
they make a recommendation, they vote on it,
And
and
you
then
can say
those
that's
budgets have to come back
unacceptable.
with
That would
that.
have been, if you voted yes.
Yeah, you never had a choice, if they made a cut, you had to
Thank
come
you.
back with a budget that equaled that, right? Yeah. So, any recommendation you made, they have to do.
Being that
Finally,
this year
but not
is
now.
different.
But that was
and
finally last year, I'm sorry.
What this
No,
year
next
is,
budget.
how this year is so different is very simple. I mean, we have been living under basically a price freeze on both ends, both the education and on the budget. We've known about the possibility of less revenue coming in from the state. So all of these things have been pre-known, which is why the budget process this year is just a little bit different than it's been in other years. So consequently, the school went through and tried to cut as much as they could from it, and the town did the same thing and presented us with a budget. Now, I would like to say, I would like to call the school and say, we're gonna have to cut you a little bit more. Can you come up with some pretty good ideas and then meet with us? Can we meet with you on your next meeting, which is Monday night, and we'll go over it? That was my scenario, but I never made a motion. I can't make a motion anyway, but, you know, that was not brought
So,
up.
just to be
So the
clear,
motion was to
Basically, what
cut.
you're saying is that you want them to determine what their cut should be.
I'd like them to have an
not the board,
idea of what they
okay.
can cut more, yeah.
Not the Board of Finance, you want
Yeah.
them to let that run that.
Well,
I
we still
want
have
them
the
to give us an
final say.
idea, I mean, we're gonna be
This
the
is an
final
interim
say.
stage of the process, you know.
We're gonna be the final say, we're always the final say. Yes, Conrad?
I think it should be presented to the Board of Ed as a great concern that the Board of Finance had, that we are down, that the budget, the way it is presented, will not pass. And we are extremely concerned about the situation, so we would like to talk to them before. So let's see what type of understanding can we get,
I agree.
rather than threatening with numbers.
I think that's good.
I think that's the way to go.
Last year, they came in with a budget
Yeah.
for the second budget hearing, much lower than what they told us they had, and it wasn't requested by the Board of Finance.
Conrado, do you have a good voice, a good singing voice?
I just saying in my class.
You do, well, there's that music teacher position. Maybe you could combine two things at once.
I'm doing my guitar.
Okay, so now, is there,
I
What-
think we ought to meet.
what
them
does
Monday.
everybody want me to do? Mr. Pellegrino, what would you like me to do? Do you want to have another motion and actually tell them a figure? Or do you want to just to ask?
I like the idea, I like the idea of a percentage. I like the idea of a number too. I just like something that tells them, this is our vision.
Yeah.
So that they get an idea that we're not looking for $35,000. You know, we're looking for substantial amount of money. And, you know, even if we said a 1% cut, that's still, that brings you right back to that $271,000.
$271,000, right.
So maybe that's the number.
1% would be
Yeah.
reasonable
1% would be
Yeah.
271,000.
as a starting point, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
They already gave that to you, Dave, you said no.
No,
No,
I
no.
Well, what Brian was
no,
looking
no,
for,
we changed it.
70,000.
what Brian was looking for was only like 1.5%.
So,
It was not.
I'm gonna I'll make a recommendation that we cut their budget by 1%.
Is that a motion?
That we're thinking of
Are you doing
cutting.
it as a
Yeah.
motion?
I'm putting that in as a motion, I'm sorry, a rule of order,
Okay, is there a
whatever.
second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Can we quantify that number, please?
271,000,
No, 1%. If it's 1%, we gotta put a number with it.
that's what I'm doing.
Do the
Hang on a
1%
second.
rather than the number.
270
The number's too threatening.
1,000,
Well,
No.
actually,
No.
it'd be $279,000,
It's
$307.36. Why is that number
279,000,
different than over here?
7,600,000.
That's
Yeah.
307,
proposed.
That's what it is.
right?
No, 279 is proposed.
279, 30737.
All right.
So we're gonna, oh, so you're
You're
saying
cutting
1%
their
to put their
proposal, 1%.
proposal. Okay,
So that would be the 276, right?
279.
279.
279.
Yeah, all right.
Okay,
Can you
so,
add the word approximately to it?
motions, I'm sorry, motions made and seconded, and now we are open for discussion?
But it's gonna be 1% of the proposed budget.
Correct.
Proposed budget, right?
And
We
what
are
is
open
the
for
dollar
discussion.
figure?
279, 307.37.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
279,
307, 307.
Okay, got it.
It's right there, it's 1% of there.
Yeah, 1%.
So is there any discussion on the motion that's on the table?
Well, my only question is, with that, do we still gonna meet with them, or are you just gonna give them this proposal?
I think probably, I'm gonna ask if we can still meet with them Monday night up there.
Yeah,
I
normally
mean-
how it works is you make the cut, you just. call
Right,
it.
I'd like to know what the ramification, you know, if they've got a heads up on this, what's the ramifications of another $279,000 out of your budget?
Is this a recommendation, or is this
No,
this
was
is a
No,
mandate?
this is a
Mandate.
demand.
A demand.
You just
But-
put
but
it
we
in
can still change
that
it
they
before
will.
the final
Right.
presentation to the public, you know?
but that's,
It's a
they're
demand.
gonna come back to us
Yeah.
and tell us,
Of course, what they can do or can't do, yeah.
oh my, you know, we're gonna lose, whatever it's gonna be,
Yeah.
okay? I mean, and that's why to be honest, I mean, that's why I went higher. I want the squirm factor, okay? Tell me real life, now here's what our issues are. Here's where the problem's gonna be. Here's where we can't live with
Mr.
this.
Shaw.
I might have reservations from the perspective of, here's a number. We don't know where we are this year. We're guessing.
Thank you.
So, I'm looking from a perspective of the whole, this year and next year. So we're talking about their requested budget for next year's operating budget. We haven't finalized financially where we are this year. So whatever we have a shortfall this year, you can kind of figure, we're gonna have that shortfall probably next year, because it's not looking like money's gonna come through.
Higher.
So, you know, maybe we may have to just sit back and, if nobody wants, if we can't cut, just say flat fund. Because if the taxpayers are gonna have an increase through a mill rate increase, you know, we've gotta try to minimize that, but we may have to just say flat fund, which may be higher, you know, may be different than that percentage. You know, when we get to that point, but I think it's discussions that need to be had with the superintendent, with the first selectman, you know, because we're at such a fragile point of how do we pay for the shortfall this year and
Prepare for next year.
prepare for next year. If we,
I
if we
agree.
kind of move forward, like, you know, the money's here, I don't think it's gonna be here, you know.
Well, this is what would happen, I think. If the Republicans win, at least for a while, they've committed themselves to this Trump-type austerity. They're gonna have to follow through with it for at least a year or so, so the monies will continue to be cut. If the Democrats win a majority, and especially if they have a Democratic governor, then they're gonna follow the guidelines of that commission on fiscal stability, and they're gonna raise taxes on the higher income people, they're gonna raise taxes on some of the businesses, they're gonna end the exemption on financial institutions and all that stuff that Roland put through. There'll be more money available, and they'll spend more money. But we can't tell until the election. And also, of course, the national economy has a lot to do with it. Put up terms, we're in better shape.
Now, isn't the state budget already passed for next year?
No, this is the second year.
So this is the second year? Oh, so next year it's even gonna be worse.
It could be better.
Could be better.
So this is the second half, this is the fourth quarter of the second year.
If I had to guess by what you guys are saying, is that you don't wanna cut much out of the Board of Education budget. And I think that what Rich said made a lot of sense, and I'll tell you the reason why. Is if you go back to Mary and you go back to the Board of Ed and say, you're flat funded, last year's budget is what, you know, I want you to present to the next thing. All the increase that you're gonna propose to the town is gonna be the shortfall that the state is taking away from us.
Yeah, but see, the problem with that is they're contractually bound. About 75% of their expenditures have to
Understood.
do with jobs
And
that are
that's
already
Mary as
contracted
well as the
out.
school.
But this.
And you have to pay it. You can't say.
I
we're not gonna do
understand,
it.
I understand that, Dave, but it's only, flat funding it is actually about the same as what these guys are recommending.
I don't think so, because the average increase, I think, is like 2.5%.
No, budget last year. We're not telling what to do, what to cut. We're saying your budget last year is what your budget needs to be this year with flat funding. So if you wanna then go to the townspeople, explain to them, we're gonna have a big increase. That increase is not from town spending. It's from what the state is short us for money. I think you have a much better, you're gonna have a much better chance of
Right,
success.
but what I'm saying is the reality in the school system is that probably 75% of their expenditures, or close to that, are related to contracts. The contracts call for increases that have to be given. You can't not do it.
It doesn't call
So-
for how many people you have to have employed though.
Well, it's if you have to, oh yeah, a lot of those contracts, you can't just fire somebody. You can't fire somebody without cause. If you do, you have to pay unemployment for 20.
Trust me, you have to
long-
write
believe
for
me.
4 months to get
Believe
anybody
me.
fired.
Believe me, you try to cut somebody who's tenured or anything like that, forget it. The bottom line is, that's too big an expense for them, because 75% of their
Okay,
costs are
but we
going
are
up
in the
to
middle of a
1.5%.
discussion on a
Yeah, where are we at
motion.
right now?
So,
It's
there
still
was a
in the middle of
motion.
we
discussion
still have a
from,
motion on the table,
1%.
we are still discussing. So now, is there any other discussion on the motion on the table, the 279,000?
Which is 1%.
1%.
Is there any
Which, by
other
the way,
discussion?
brings it back to about flat funded for last year.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Nothing, it makes them flat funded.
Mr. Pellegrino,
Yes.
vote, yes or no?
Was it
You
ever
made the
seconded?
With
I
the,
don't-
with the 1%, the
I'm
motion.
gonna make a motion that, you
No,
know.
you
Yeah,
made
Was,
it.
okay,
You made it
1%.
and seconded
I
it.
can
we
second,
just
then I
voted.
go, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'll go along with it tentatively for that.
Okay, I voted no, but I'm done.
Just to
Okay,
see what happens.
So we'll see what happens.
279,000,
We'll meet with them.
and I know what they're gonna do, I can almost feel it in my bones. You know what they're gonna do?
So I mean, this is
I
still
think
open to
if the town was
negotiation,
not
it
gonna
could go
take
back
the-
up again.
Of course it is.
It's gonna,
No, that's
it's
it.
gonna force some issues to come out.
Yeah, but-
Now, I agree
Make
with what
that-
you're
make
saying,
that
I mean, a lot of it
budget
is mandated, but what it doesn't take into consideration, and I think this is the goose that lays the golden egg, is through attrition is where they get the lion's share of excess.
But
Okay.
I think you're wrong this year,
But
because I think
just because
Dave's
we
right,
say
the
this-
attrition's already happened.
We can still change our minds before the last,
Absolutely.
even after the last public hearing. We'll have
Then
to,
they come back and
To
tell us we're
change,
crazy
to
that
change
they
your
can't
mind,
do
let's
it
say
next
that
year.
they come in with a
That's okay.
lower
Let's hear
budget, or they come back to you and say, we need more money, you're gonna then, just let you know how this works, you're gonna have to propose that to the board, that they increase their budget, and everybody vote on it. Because right now, you've just set their spending.
we would
For
have
what?
to do that.
You would have to vote for them to increase it, yes. Correct, Neil? Sound right?
Sounds right.
That's how it's worked in the past.
We would,
What are you,
yes.
what are you talking about?
I'm not sure about
Like,
What I'm saying is that right now what you did is you just voted to decrease their current budget by 279. So it's gonna be whatever that number is, all right? You can't just say, go ahead and increase it. You can come back into a Board of Finance and you can make a motion to increase it and have it be voted on by everybody.
Yeah, that's
But you
all.
can't say, you wanna know your $100,000.
I don't think
that's
Dave
okay.
ever thought anything
No,
like that.
of course there'd have to be a vote, but I'm saying it's not written in stone, we're not necessarily gonna present this at the referendum.
And I can tell you,
There'll be a
they
lot of
have, it's
jockeying
not written
back
in
and
stone
forth.
that they're giving back 500 either.
Right.
But I'll bet you it'll be reduced now.
But again, to approach it the way Steve and I think Dave said it
I
earlier,
would.
was that we're gonna present a budget to the town, and all we're doing is we're asking you to pay for what the state's not giving us. So we've done our best to keep everything under control
Right.
this particular year.
My son's
It's
partner
still not
is
gonna change that
very
we're gonna
good
have
at
to do
this.
some bonding in the future for a ton of things in this town.
Well, I liked Rich's idea of trying to tie it to next year too and look ahead. The only trouble is, until you know what's gonna happen in November, it's pretty hard to
It's
do
pretty
that.
hard to look
Hopefully,
ahead.
hopefully with the money coming back and everything, we're in a position where we can just pay the shortfall this year and not have to worry about trying to put it in next year.
Well, that would be, yeah, that would be.
That'd be great.
You mean
And we're
pay
getting-
for it out of the,
On a cash balance, right?
Yeah, if that's what you gotta do. I don't necessarily agree with that,
Yeah,
but
it's a huge
at
amount of
this
money.
point,
That's a lot of money.
It's not a bad back.
if you're down to a couple $100,000,
Oh, if we can get it
Oh, if
down
we can
to-
get it down to a couple $100,000.
that's where about we're at.
But
I
no,
think.
no, we're not, because we're 1.7 million short.
No, we're
Oh, that's next
1.022.
year.
Look at the
Well,
thing here.
17, 18, no, you're right.
I'm
I
talking
mean,
about
that's what we're
last
bringing
year's
in.
budget, we're 1.022. So say the Board of Ed does give us back 500,000,
Right.
and Mary has 265, and Chris says he has a little bit or whatever, we might be down to a small number.
2 to 300, yes.
I told you already,
Yeah.
Lisa already said we were gonna be okay this year.
Yeah,
Right, 2 to 300 we can deal with.
yeah.
The next
But like,
year is
but this way we
the
don't
big
have
nut.
to take a shortfall and add it to next year's budget to make it more difficult.
Right.
Gentlemen, it's been a very difficult evening. I knew it was going to be with the discussions that went on, but I have to give everybody a pat in the back and saying everybody acted very well, and it was an enjoyable meeting. And thank you very much for all of your input and all of your caring.
Do I hear a motion, finally?
Yeah.
But no, that
that a
was
motion
for
for
tonight.
that boy, or
No,
what was it?
first of all, we have any old business.
Hearing.
We did all the new business. Any old business?
I have
Is
one
there-
piece
Yes,
of
yes.
business.
Can we
There is
go,
old business?
You call, what did Lisa say on the
I'm
national
waiting.
championship?
Championship games.
Okay, hold on before.
Yeah, Dave had done
Now
it
we got-
correctly.
Aaron has a
We
question,
didn't have to
Jane.
do it any other
Sorry.
way.
Jane, Harry.
I'm sorry?
you are going to ask the Board of Education,
If we can join their meeting next Monday night,
all right.
and
so
then I'll let you know.
So then you would be meeting with them at 6:30.
At 6:30?
Well, that's when their meeting is.
Whatever
Right.
time
Or
it is.
they might tell us to come in at 7 and do their business before
Earlier,
then,
later,
whatever.
whatever.
I'll let you know, and then we can put out an email to everybody. And
I
I'll
love-
call you, Dave.
Yeah, that's all.
Are you planning on having a board meeting there?
What we've done every year with, around
Yeah,
budget.
but that was an official board meeting. Right now, you've already made the recommendation, do they have to cut by that amount? Do
Right.
you want to sit down with them also on that night?
Yes.
I was thinking that's what everybody
Yeah, that's what we
wanted.
wanted to
Am I
do.
wrong?
We can call it a special meeting on our part, they have their regular meeting. They
We
can,
have it scheduled.
We have a regular meeting.
We have a meeting scheduled
Oh, that's right, we
anyway.
do, so sure.
Can we
Just
just
hold it in a
change the
different
venue
place,
and
that's
It'll be
all.
kind of a joint meeting.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I know that it was a motion and it was passed, and they have to come up with the 279, but they might come up with some other things that we hadn't even thought of.
379.
You don't want it, seriously, I don't care, we can sit here. There's not a whole lot to do, we can cancel the meeting.
You know what?
There really
I
isn't
have-
much we have to do.
I have no problem going in and sitting down and talking to them, let's face it, they're 80% of what we can, not what we control, but they're 80% of our responsibility, I have no problem sitting down and talking.
Well, I wanna hear the
about it.
answers too, I don't know the answers.
I mean,
Yeah, so-
No, you reach out and
Yeah.
you get 100 pages of
I
fluff
wanna
that-
hear the reaction when you say, look, you're looking at it from the perspective of your budget, and you did do very well, we think, but the problem is, we're gonna have to present an almost 3 mil increase to the general public.
Mhm.
Think about that, and it's probably not gonna pass. And, you know, introduce it that way, let them get a picture of the overall
Sure.
view of what's happening, the real problem, not just from their own end.
Right.
And that's everybody's got their
Well,
own, you know.
I thought I was going to call them like tomorrow and let them
Good,
know.
good, that's a good thing.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, give them early.
But you gotta call them and give them the number, right? Or do you do that, Aaron?
I will be more than happy to do so. No, I'm gonna
The
call them
chair
and get the
should do
meeting
it.
set up, if you wanna meet with them.
I said, send Aaron out there with it.
No, I won't make Aaron do that.
That will be Monday,
That would be Monday.
right?
I say that's what we should do. and
Okay,
request
Gary,
a meeting.
you wanna do that? Okay.
I'm
Tony?
fine.
Absolutely. I'm
Fran?
available.
Yep, yep.
Conrado? Richard? Steve?
Sure, I'm just an alternate.
Get it going. I'll
Now
try to
can
get
we
it
adjourn,
going.
or-
Neil, would you like to join us?
I'm gonna do my best.
Okay. Thank you.
Come on, when else have you had this much fun?
Yeah, right. And this is just a ball.
He's a dentist, he has more fun than every day.
Brian, ask him if I'm gonna run again.